Om. Gayatri Mahamantra with your back straight. Om Bhuribhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. We come upon today the part 6 of the ongoing series upon Gayatri Mahamantra. Let us reiterate in the light of our practice of Gayatri Mahamantra so that we do not become oblivion with the flow of the ongoing series. The practice and its few aspects must be reiterated. Now you are ready for the japa. There may be certain questions still in your mind. Let us resolve them once again. The japamala, if you practice with the mala, that is the rosary, then in that case it has to be either of tulsi or of chandan. And in case if you want to practice your japa with the count on time, then of course it's a different aspect wherein you must at least have once a count upon the number of mantra that you're able to japa as a japa, incantation, and then according to that set the time so that you know if I practice for about 5 minutes, roughly this is the number of japa that I accomplish. Now beneath you, the sheet has to be determined. It has to be either kusha, that is the grass. We very well know that in India, kusha asan, or it has to be a sheet of a cotton cloth. In the case of kusha as well, the grass, since grass at times is dry and rough, you may choose to spread a cotton sheet atop it so that it comforts you. Then, if possible, try to face towards the east, but that doesn't mean that if for you to face towards east is not easy or not accessible easily, then you cannot face on any other side. You can certainly face, if it is possible only then. But do not enforce upon you and carry a remorse that I was not able to sit while my face towards the east. So don't have that kind of a feeling within yourself. The japa must be practiced with your back straight, uncompromising. This is uncompromising. You cannot compromise upon that. If you cannot make your back straight for any count, then you may take a support. But the premonition must be strictly observed that you should not lean directly with the wall. There has to be something as an intermediary, as an obstruction, or as something as a buffer in between in the form of a pillow or something else, so that you are not directly in touch with the wall. That strict premonition must be observed before you try to take a support of the wall, which is not the case with the sofa or the chair. Now you are there, sit down for the japa. Now there's a small utensil of water right up front you. Take some water out of it, sprinkle it upon yourself, and undergo a deep experience of being purified on all grounds of your existence, mental, physical, etc. You can, whatever you are able to imagine at that move, the purpose it to purify your entirety at that given point of time. Because now you are absolutely sincere, aware, concentrated, and consolidated at that place to embark upon a spiritual pursuit which is highly pious, holds the sanctity of the highest order, which is Gayatri Mahamantra Japa. Now, after having that, disallow any activity that drains your energy, especially after the japa. Once you're done with the japa, disallow. Maybe it is like touching the metal or going barefoot on the floor. There has to be something beside you, for example, a rubber chappal, which can work as an insulation. The moment you get up from the upasana, your japa, you should be in your rubber chappal, which you can specially keep assigned only for the japa practice. So if it is possible, assign it. If you have a house with a wooden flooring, or you have a carpet, or you have mats spread out, So then there is nothing to worry upon. It's only if you have a bare floor, so do not come barefoot on that floor. So that some obstruction has to be observed for a period of around 10 minutes. By the time your energy which you have gathered through your japa gets absorbed and assimilated into your existent physical and mental dimension, both at the same time. So these things have to be practiced. There is no scope and room for anything called as pap or punya. It's a caution which has to be observed in the light of the energy that you have gathered, not in the light that there is some kind of a error in the form of a sin which has been accrued. No, nothing of that kind. You're purely with your motherly deity, that is Gayatri, and you're practicing something which is in the science of consciousness. So there is no room for having any kind of a remorse, any kind of feel of sin or any pap or punya. The Hindi word is a better one that convey to us in the entirety. Now, those who cannot make themselves sit onto the floor for any reason, they can certainly choose to start their japa while sitting upon a sofa or a chair, while making into consideration that serious aspect that your back should remain straight during the japa, so that when the energy generates, it's allowed to move upward without any hindrance. The subtle nerves, both beside your backbone, must be unobstructed without any restriction. So that caution must be observed well, whether you sit onto the floor or you sit upon any seat like sofa or a chair. To have an aspect of sanctity within your mind, sprinkle little water upon your little few drops onto the sofa or the chair, just to give you an experience of sanctity and purity all over. Not that your few drops of water are going to change anything into the constitution of the sofa or chair, but yes, it is certainly going to matter within you that I am well prepared about this particular practice for which I hold the absolute sanctity within my own self. Now, having that, Anushtan is something different. You may be listening about the Anushtan, which is for a specific period of time. And of course, yes, you make yourself get into certain severity of certain observation. The norms are a bit stringent, but that is something different. This is not for you at the moment. For the beginners, it has to be at ease. They should at least start the practice of their Gayatri Japa. Then comes the Yajnapavid, the sacred thread that we wear while practicing Gayatri. Initially, there is no need for you. I won't say that ultimately, if you choose to wear it, you should not. No, it's not like that. I am wearing it right from decades now, almost around 4 decades. We've been wearing the Yajnapavid, the sacred thread, which has a great significance, which is considered to be the image of the deity itself. Those few threads contain the entirety of the Gayatri Mahamantra in a symbolic representation. It's not that those threads are just have been taken over merely for the observation of some ritual, etc. Yes, the ritual is conducted when you wear that for the first time, but not at a grown-up age. You need to undergo that ritual. If you can afford to, then you can certainly, you should. But if you cannot, there is no need. Simply on any of the pious occasion, or while on the yajna, or even on any purnima, you can start wearing by chanting one Gayatri Mahamantra. Have that around you. We wear that thread around you, and now from that onwards, the Yajnapavid is there with you. What if you're not able to carry it? We have been informed that there are certain stringent norms with that. While you go to the washroom, you must suspend it upon your ear and all. Yes, there were certain norms to be observed earlier when the dress code was a bit different, but now these days we have a lot of obstruction around the waist in the form of when we wear especially the trousers and all. So automatically the thread is disallowed to penetrate beyond the waistline. So not much has to be observed. In case if you really are more cautious about it, then you can take around 2 to 3 rounds of it, make it kind of a sort of a garland in your own neck, and then wear it under your shirt. What if I don't choose to wear that? There's no restriction for that. It's only if you choose to wear it, but there's no restriction. But of course, yes, when you become a sincere sadhak, trying to now practice with consistency through anushtans, and you want to pursue Gayatri more seriously, then a moment comes where automatically from within your own self an urge shall arise which will create a mandate before you. Now I must give myself a Yajnapaveet. Yajnapaveet is not only for, it's not for any gender. Gayatri has no bias for the gender at all. And understand it from the aspect, I am born to a female, that is my mother. Something which is a restriction to my mother, how can I be allowed that? And I must observe, if something is a restriction for my mother, then I certainly have to observe it's equally restricted for myself. Barring upon certain physical mandates and constraints for those few days in the month, or certain other aspects that relate to the procreation, otherwise Gayatri holds no restriction between any kind of a gender bias. For it, both are the same. Having said so, let's move on. I brought in the Yajnapaveet because there may be questions cropping up within you. You may have read something, because when you start taking interest into any subject, we try to do a lot of surfing on the net. Then we come across certain kind of beliefs that become an obstruction for us to continue the practice, or to even embark upon the practice, holding that if I'm not able to do this, something wrong may not happen, some sin may not accrue, I may not be discredited. It may not happen that I started to get something for a gain, but instead of a gain, I have entered into a loss for which I have now a disgruntlement within myself. So I'm clarifying those aspects which may not hold any significance today. With the changing times, things have changed. Yes, few immutable things cannot be changed because they are the laws of the nature. But there are aspects of belief and practices which certainly undergo change. That is why in the Sanatana Dharma Paddhati, we consider this particular principle as the epitome that determines any kind of a principle or any practice to be laid down. We consider the ongoing times, the surrounds as the most important to determine any point of time what should be considered as a do and what should be considered as a don't. So it may happen that something which was a do at one time is now today a don't, and something which was a don't in some era is a well-established do today. So when the times change, we must also change and adapt to the ongoing times. There are certain aspects which are immutable, cannot be altered on the grounds of their scientific relevance, but otherwise, whereas beliefs are concerned, things certainly undergo change. And if you don't change, you very well know about the dinosaurs. I need not remind you about them. That's very ingrained into us now. Now, this immutable ancient Indian wisdom, as I told you, it draws its determination upon the ongoing times and the surroundings that determine what should be as a do. Now, in no way the ancient the scriptures or Vedas, they cannot be mutated because they hold a different significance from the aspect of scientific observation. An observation that was conducted during unknown times by unknown masters, unknown exalted ones, and then laid down in the form of principle and given down to us. This cannot be changed because you may alter anything, but you cannot alter the basic constitution of the water from H2O to something else. That cannot be done. That is immutable in a respect. Now, I have been moving quickly upon the reiteration aspect today of the practice so that it may not happen that you come down to the part 6 of the series and what was informed to you in the part 1, now you start becoming oblivion and you said, where was it mentioned? How do I go about it? So this reiteration merely will bring you again back to what all you had gathered earlier. Now coming down to this, the aspect of it, the place of japa has to be one. This is something which you must try to affix yourself. The place and the time, they must be determined well and they must be frozen as far as possible. As they say ASAP, so I'll say ASAP again, as far as possible. So as far as possible, try to see that you are able to determine one particular place, and that's because your mind and your bio clock, one place, one time. both have to attune to your practice. When you create a specific interlude which is absolutely dedicated for something, then you very well know if you eat food at a particular given point of time and your body has now undergone an adaptation, then your bio clock automatically generates that hunger within you and your appetite is triggered and you want to have something. You really want to now devour something, swallow something. So your mind and body both have a tendency to attune to a particular clock and an environment. So having said so, your environment and the clock, the body and mind, both have to be determined. This is from your aspect, which is you as an individual. But there is another subtle aspect which has been informed by the masters that if you continuously practice Gayatri Japa, the kind of communication which you're trying to establish with the subtle dimension thereby also draws upon you certain subtle entities. Don't carry that word entity much deeper into you. Consider it that there is some sort of a divine grace that also gets associated with it, and the time also matters to them. Do they have a clock? No, they don't have a clock, but certainly they shall always mark a presence on a specific period, a given point of time, if they know that a seeker makes itself available on that particular place at a given point of time. So try to be very cautious about that. The word cautious is a bit extreme for that. I take back. I draw back this word cautious. Try to determine as far as possible that your place of worship, place of japa, and the time of japa remains the same. That does not mean that you cannot alter it or you cannot undergo any change if there is some sort of a contingency that mandates your presence elsewhere, or your place of worship has to be changed on some account, maybe whitewash or the guests have come in, or you have to travel somewhere. No, it's not like that. You can certainly undergo that change too. But that should be only for barring few cases, not a norm, but an exception where you have no other resolve but to create an alteration in the time and the place both. So keep it in your mind. Again, there is no pap or punya, no sin and no gains, but it's only an aspect to attune your body and mind. Now, if you're traveling, there may be a question that if you're traveling, what do I do? My traveling was not going to be for about 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours. Maybe it was for 7 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours by train, or maybe the flight was long. What in that case? In that case, you shall not be able to sit properly and perform your japa. In that kind of a case, then you should be able to undergo mansik japa. Let it on go within yourself without a mala, without an asan, without a posture, wherever you are, in whatever situation you are, just undergo that silent incantation within yourself so that you remain connected with your practice. There is no room given to evasion. Mind hunts for an opportunity to infiltrate through any evasion and then cast its shadow upon your entire understanding to go on evading it in the following day, in the next day to follow. No, don't do that. So don't disallow your mind to gain any edge on any count. And for that matter, if it happens, for example, you were not able to perform your japa for one day, one particular day, then surmount that japa or carry it forward to the next day. For example, if you were practicing 11 mala on that particular day, now you are not able to perform that. What happens on the next day? I cannot perform 22 mala on the next following day. I don't have that much of time, nor do I have that much of endurance to go on sitting for that long. Okay, no problem. Distribute it in the form of 3 mala for next coming consecutively 4 days. So what will happen? You divide and distribute the amount of japa that you were able to, you had to evade, you had to miss for some count which was unavoidable, but now it has been well compensated by distributing and dividing it upon the days to come. You may even go on dividing it for more number of days to 5 or 6 days, but keep it in your mind that the number must be accomplished. There should be no gap. What happens if you're not able to pay any installment? Then what happens? Does it mean that no installment was paid? If you skipped an installment for your loan for any matter, despite of the reminder from your bank, so does that mean that once not given is gone now? No, it does not evaporate. That amount has to be certainly paid. But in case of the or the worldly affairs, it has to be paid with some penalty. But in the spiritual parlance, no need for the penalty, but at least you have to accomplish the japa so that your mind is very well ingrained and informed that, look, you have no room for evasion. It does not matter that there was an omission for one particular day for some count which was unavoidable. That does not leave any room for you to go on stretching yourself into the days to come, so that you thwart my practice and discipline to observe Gayatri Japa, for which I have gathered a lot of energy within my own self to now retain myself with the practice of Gayatri. So having said, though, I have almost tried to touch the salient aspects of your practice which have to be observed by any beginner. Any beginner. There may be certain things which keep coming to your mind. There may be aspects. I'm going to touch other aspects also, which probably would again concern your questions about the mantra being blocked as a kilit, or the mantra not unless you have a diksha. It's all these aspects shall be taken. Do not worry. Whatever is the necessary that has been informed by our Brahm Rishi, the entire information, every single bit of the information that I share with you, barring few other illustrations or certain aspects which are merely for the sake of explanation, are the borrowed ones from my great exalted, my own master. Every bit of this knowledge owes its existence to him. Through him, the light has been passed upon to me and many more like me, those who are going on and continuously sharing such knowledge with people at large. Having said so, more in the next part of this series. Share it with the like-minded ones if you feel like. Not that I'm insisting you to share it, but if you feel like it's worth sharing to someone who's like-minded, only then. Don't enforce it. These videos, these recordings cannot be made viral. Nor they can and nor they shall. Nor they shall. They shall only be confined to those few seekers who have now stepped upon a certain evolutionary ladder where from now they want to plunge into the next dimension. Having said so, enough for the day. ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है.